All right, so UPS just dropped off a package, and I'm going to put together this upper, but it's not going to be like a real upper assembly. I'm mainly just doing this just to kind of do an unboxing and kind of see how everything looks, how everything fits together, and then I'll do a proper torque down and stuff later. But I just kind of wanted to just put a couple of parts together and just, like I said, see how it fits. So let's see what this 20-inch H-bar Criterion barrel looks like. Um, Kind of excited to put together this 20-inch like SPR type build. And it's gonna be a heavy build. But same box, same type of box that my Criterion Core came in. This is an H bar. I misspoke on my previous video saying that's a Criterion Core. It's a Criterion H bar. So this is their heavy profile barrel, and I wanted a heavy profile barrel, as you know, when barrel harmonics and barrel whip and the barrel heats up, it should all naturally just be a little bit better with a heavier barrel with long strings of fire and stuff. So just like any Criterion barrel, though, it comes really well packaged, and it's always sealed with like a Criterion wrap. So if you ever get a Criterion barrel that isn't actually sealed in plastic wrap and doesn't have the seal around the foam and stuff, it's probably a return, or it's not a real Criterion barrel, but it's actually marked on the actual barrel itself. It'll say Criterion on the barrel. But Criterion barrels, or most barrels I've actually run into, are very well oiled. And this is just a phosphated coated chrome line barrel. So it's a quality barrel. I'm pretty familiar with Criterion. And this is the Geisley Mark IV rail. And I'm really looking forward to this rail. I really like Geisley rails. I know there's memes online that call Geisley rails bendy boys. I'm not entirely sure, because if you hit a rail or put pressure on extruded aluminum rail with, like I said, enough force or enough pressure, you're going to bend it. It doesn't matter what manufacturer it is. Quad rails and quad rails are about the only ones that you might not be able to bend as easily. But even with enough force, those quad rails are going to bend. But this is a full 15-inch Mark IV rail. It's got M-lock in the in-between slots between the Picatinny, which is kind of nice. I kind of like that feature. And then it's got Picatinny at the 12, 6, 9, and 3 o'clock position at the very fore end of the rail, which is kind of nice. And then I've noticed with newer Geisley rails, they're putting in these little steel inserts to the QD points, which is really nice. I'm not entirely sure what hex bit that I use. I just kind of eyeballed it and it was the right size. But as I was unscrewing it, I noticed just how thick these steel cross bolts were on this Mark IV rail. And I have all the confidence in the world that the clamping force that you're going to be able to put down on those steel cross bolts is quite good. Look how thick those are. Those are nice steel cross bolts. And the rail itself is 6061 T6 aluminum. I think all rails are going to be 6061. In fact, I think LaRue is the only manufacturer that I've ever heard of that has made a 7075 T6 aluminum rail. But correct me if I'm wrong. That's the only one I can think of. And one thing I did notice was that this barrel nut was really tight around the rail. And this barrel nut's made out of 7075 T6 aluminum. I would have preferred steel, like a 4140, 4150, whatever they make steel barrel nuts out of, but it is what it is. It keeps down on the weight, but honestly, I wasn't concerned about the weight on this rail. So I'm going to put together this upper receiver, just, kind of piece it together. I'm not really going to torque anything down. I am going to grease the upper receiver where the barrel extension goes in. I'm going to grease the threads, and I'm going to grease the shoulders and stuff too, just as a precaution. I typically don't use the Lucas Oil Red and Tacky for this. I use like Aeroshell for it, but I don't have my vise set up currently at my home. So I'm just doing this as a precaution. It's just kind of out of habit. But this Red and Tacky would probably work. But if you put together an upper receiver, I suggest using the correct Aeroshell and stuff, and not shortcutting like I am currently right now. This is an Aero Precision M4 E1 assembled upper receiver. It's one of those upper receivers that I bought on July 4th weekend, and it's a good upper receiver. I prefer forged as far as like the durability goes, but I like the look of billet. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. It doesn't look like your standard forged upper receiver, but it's not as like cool looking as a billet upper receiver. And then the gas tube is a rifle length gas tube from Aero Precision, and I think the gas block was from MBS or Dirty Bird Industries. I decided not to go with like a super high quality gas block, just because to me gas blocks are gas blocks. I really haven't had one not work as long as everything's torqued down. You know, I usually Loctite or Vibra thread the set screws and stuff, just to kind of keep things in place. And as long as you torque it down correctly and everything seats and you've aligned the gas hole up with the gas block correctly, it should be fine. And then, like a dumbass, I put on the gas block and gas tube first before putting on the barrel nut. Um, Usually, right, you're going to torque down the put on the barrel nut first, then torque it down, then put on your gas tube and gas block, just for future reference. I just got into a rush because I was like, I want to put this together. I want to see what it looks like. So, like most of my videos, I'm going to make a mistake or two, but that's okay. So you're going to see me kind of grease the barrel nut a little bit, and that's because of how tight that rail was against that barrel nut. And I'm just using like the residual grease that I had on this Q-tip and stuff. And that should just be enough to just help it slide on and slide off a little bit better, since I'll be taking the rail back off and, you know, torquing everything down correctly. One thing I did want to mention about Criterion barrels is that they will always dimple one hole on their barrels, which I really like that feature. That's always going to be dimpled directly, you know, 180 degrees around the barrel from the gas hole, and that's because if they dimple two holes, not every gas block has the same dimensions for their set screws. So that one dimple should be universal. And what's really nice about that is that um, the set screws, you'll be able to see one set screw set just a little bit lower than the other, and that's how you know that you should be lined up, which is kind of nice. And don't over torque your set screws in your gas block. I've stripped out those screws before because I've tried to over torque it, just putting a little more oomph into them. I'm not entirely sure what the proper torque settings are for it, but definitely don't over torque it. Otherwise, you're going to be having some issues getting that gas block off like I have in the past. Just out of habit, I always twist and tug on that gas block just to ensure that it's seated on there and it's not going to go anywhere. And technically, I use Vibratite, but some people use Rockset, some people use Loctite red or blue, and some people use Vibratite. I just prefer to use Vibratite because it's easier to get off if you ever want to take the gas block off, whereas red Loctite and Rockset are kind of hard to get off. Blue Loctite, it can burn off once the barrel heats up, but you should have like enough residual Loctite on there that it should keep a little bit on the threads and keep it from backing out. So I don't see any issue in using blue Loctite. It's just probably not preferred. All right, so I don't know if you saw that, but I had a washer fall out of the handguard. So just be careful when you're turning over the handguard. You're going to have two washers in there where the cross bolts go in. And the only one didn't fall out because it's literally covered in grease. So I'm sure uh, the liquid was kind of keeping it sealed in there a little bit. And here's what the Mark IV rail is going to look like. And it slid on pretty good, and I think it's because I greased it. There's that washer falling out one more time. But you always want to ensure that your rail and your upper receiver are mated up evenly. So just always look at it and eyeball it and just make sure everything's lined up correctly. So according to the instructions, the cross bolts can be torqued down to 5 foot-pounds, or I believe that is equivalent to 60 inch-pounds if like you're using like a Wheeler bat wrench or something like I will when I'm properly torquing those cross bolts down. And then the actual barrel nut's going to be torqued down to 40 foot-pounds according to the instructions. And most handguards are going to be between 35 and 50 foot-pounds of torque. And I usually go right in the middle, somewhere between 40 and 45. I usually set my torque wrench at about like somewhere between 40 and 45, and then I feel pretty confident in it. And then the muzzle device that I'm using right now is a Strike Industries King Comp. It's just one that I had laying around, and I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to use like a muzzle brake or a flash hider. I see a lot of people using muzzle brakes on these longer barrel builds, but I think I'm going to use a brake just to try it out, and I'll probably just crush wash it for now, and then decide what I'm going to use. I'll probably use King Kong just to see how a brake works on it. And I always throw it on the muzzle device first because I've been lucky before, and the muzzle devices have tightened up correctly without a crush washer and stuff. And if I can avoid using a crush washer, I will. And then I had some extra parts laying around. The Microbest Chrome Full Chrome BCG, and I had a Geisley Airborne charging handle. I'm just gonna throw it in here just to put a bolt carrier group and a charging handle in here, and I think it's gonna look good. So here's what the upper receiver group's going to look like, and it's a big boy, big chunky boy, but I think it's a good looking upper receiver. I'm like I said, I just wanted to see what it looks like, and not that looks mean a whole lot, but if your gun looks cool, you're going to shoot it more, and this is a good looking upper receiver group in my opinion. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching.